brave enough to visit the Inanaki Tunnel, remember the warning. Don't be fooled by the darkness. The tunnel is a place of pain and suffering, where the supernatural lurks around every corner. If you hear dogs howling, run away as quickly as possible. My name is Kenji, and I'm from Kyoto. I've always been fascinated by ghost stories and haunted places, so when I heard about the Kiyotaki Tunnel, one of the most haunted places in my city, I couldn't resist visiting it. It was a cold winter night, and my friends and I decided to explore the tunnel. We grabbed our cameras and flashlights and headed there. The tunnel is in an isolated area, surrounded by mountains and dense forests. When we reached the tunnel, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The atmosphere was heavy, and the darkness seemed to swallow us. We entered the tunnel, and the feeling of oppression increased. The silence was unsettling, and the only thing we could hear were our own footsteps echoing off the walls. Suddenly we heard a whisper. It sounded like a female voice, weak and distant. We looked everywhere, but we saw nothing. The whisper was repeated, and this time it seemed closer. "Get out of here." We started to feel chills and goosebumps. When something touched my shoulder, I looked back scared, but there was no one. That scared me. I told my friends, but they laughed, saying that it was the fear I was feeling that touched me. We continued walking through the tunnel, but the feeling that we were being watched intensified. I had the impression that there was someone or something following us. Suddenly, a bright light appeared at the end of the tunnel. We thought it was the way out, but when we got closer, we saw a small person in the light. It looked like a child due to its size. We remained motionless and watched. We decided to get closer, but when we took a few more steps, both the light and the child disappeared. And once again the voice came, "Get out of here," but in a more aggressive tone. We panicked. We started running, trying to find the exit of the tunnel. But it felt like we were going in circles. The tunnel seemed to have no end. Finally, we found the exit. We ran out of the tunnel, relieved to be safe. But the feeling of terror did not pass. We looked back and saw a shadow at the end of the tunnel. The shadow moved and disappeared. I never went back to the Kiyotaki Tunnel. The experience was terrifying and made me believe that ghosts exist. Hello, my name is Akemi, and I'm from Kyoto. I'm a college student who has always heard stories about the Kiyotaki Tunnel, but never really believed them, until now. A few weeks ago, my friends and I were returning from a party in a neighboring town. It was already late at night, and to shorten the journey, we decided to go through the Kiyotaki Tunnel. I admit I was a little nervous, but my friends assured me there was nothing to fear. As we passed through the tunnel, I felt a strange sensation, as if I were being watched. I looked around, but I saw nothing but the damp, dark walls. Suddenly one of my friends screamed. He pointed to the car's rearview mirror, where a shadowy figure appeared reflected. We all got scared. The figure looked like a woman, with long, dark hair and a pale, expressionless face. She stared at us fixedly, with a cold and penetrating gaze. My friend accelerated the car, trying to get out of the tunnel as quickly as possible. But the figure kept following us, appearing in different rearview mirrors along the way. When we finally exited the tunnel, the figure disappeared. But the fear remained. Nobody could sleep that night. The next day, we researched the Kiyotaki Tunnel and discovered that it is known for being a haunted place, where several people have suffered serious accidents and lost their lives. Some say that the spirits of these people still roam the tunnel, seeking revenge or trying to warn the living about the dangers of the place. After this experience, I started to believe in ghosts. The Kiyotaki Tunnel is a cursed place where terror is real. Hey guys, I'm Hannah, and I'm an amateur photographer from Kyoto. I've always enjoyed exploring abandoned and mysterious places, and the Kiyotaki Tunnel has always intrigued me. A few months ago, a group of friends and I decided to do a photo shoot in the tunnel. We wanted to capture the dark and spooky atmosphere of the location. We arrived at the tunnel late in the afternoon. The sun was already setting, and darkness took over the environment. We set up our equipment and started photographing. As we walked through the tunnel, we noticed that the walls were covered in strange marks. They looked like scratches and drawings, some of them with symbols we didn't recognize. Suddenly one of my friends screamed. He pointed to one of the walls, where a shadowy figure appeared for an instant. The figure quickly disappeared, but we all saw it. The atmosphere became heavier, and we began to feel chills. We decided to continue the photo session, but fear accompanied us at every step. When we developed the photos, we got a scary surprise. In some of the photos, ghosts and other strange figures appeared. In one of the photos, there was a message written on the wall in an unknown language. We were shocked by what we saw in the photos. We decided to go back to the tunnel to investigate the markings on the walls and the message. When we got there, we noticed that the marks seemed to have moved around. The message was no longer there. I felt that something was very close. It felt like heavy breathing. Next to me, I looked around, but I didn't see anything. My friend who was in front of me suddenly complained of back pain. I took a photo of him as a joke. Since he was older, we said it was because of his age, but when we developed the photo, we saw a woman on his back, as if he was carrying her. I took one more photo to make sure she didn't come with us, but what was our surprise? There was a handprint on his neck. Luckily, that woman let him go and didn't come with us. Back to the story of the tunnel. We continued a little more to investigate and see if the light or that figure appeared again, but the same voice from the previous day shouted again, "Get out of here." We ran out of the tunnel, terrified. We never went back there. The photos are proof that the Kiyotaki Tunnel is a haunted place, where the supernatural manifests itself. If you are brave enough to visit the tunnel, be careful. You might find more than you expect. Hey guys, I'm Yumi, a Kyoto student who has always heard stories about the Kiyotaki Tunnel, but never took it seriously until last night. My friends, Kenji and Akari, and I decided to explore the tunnel out of curiosity. It was a summer night, and we were returning from a mountain festival. We arrived at the tunnel around midnight. The moon was hidden, and the darkness was almost palpable. The tunnel seemed to swallow us, and the silence was disturbing. We entered the tunnel with our flashlights, and the atmosphere grew heavier with each step. We began to hear whispers and moans, as if someone was calling us. Suddenly, we saw a man standing a little further in front of us. We thought it was just a shadow, that it was coming from one of us, but when we got closer, the shadow suddenly entered the wall. We were in shock. Kenji started screaming, saying he saw a figure in the corner of the tunnel. Akari was paralyzed with fear. I tried to stay calm, but my heart was racing. We continued walking through the tunnel, and the feeling that we were being watched intensified. We had the impression that there was someone or something following us. Suddenly, we heard a loud noise, as if something had fallen to the floor. We looked back and saw the same shadow moving at the end of the tunnel. We ran as fast as we could, trying to find the exit, but the tunnel seemed to have no end. Finally, we found the exit. We ran out of the tunnel, relieved to be safe. But the fear remained. After this experience, I started to believe in ghosts. The Kiyotaki Tunnel is a cursed place where terror is real. Hi, my name is Takashi, and I'm a taxi driver in Kyoto. I've driven all over the city, but the Kiyotaki Tunnel always gave me the creeps. Yet, one night, I ended up having to go through it, and never again I was the same. It was an autumn night, the moon was full, and the sky was full of stars. I was returning home after dropping off a passenger in a neighboring town. To shorten the journey, I decided to go through the Kiyotaki Tunnel. As I drove through the tunnel, I felt a strange sensation, as if the air was heavier. I turned on the radio to try to distract myself, but the music didn't drown out the feeling that I wasn't alone. Suddenly, my headlights illuminated something in the middle of the tunnel. It was a human figure, standing in the dark. I thought it was someone who needed help, so I stopped the car. As I got closer, I realized the figure was a woman. She was dressed in white, with long black hair that covered her face. I asked if she needed help, but she didn't respond. She just stood still, staring at me. I felt a shiver down my spine. Suddenly, the woman raised her head and looked at me. His eyes were red and glowing, and his mouth was open in a macabre smile. I screamed and stepped on the accelerator, exiting the tunnel as quickly as possible. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw the woman standing at the entrance to the tunnel, watching me. Suddenly, I hear a voice inside the car saying, "Take me home. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw the woman sitting in the back seat. I stopped the car scared, and when I looked back, the woman had disappeared. I accelerated the car again, praying, and left the tunnel, looked in the rearview mirror, and didn't see anyone else. I arrived home in a state of shock. I couldn't sleep that night. The next day, when I got into the car, I found a mark on the back seat and a mark on a woman's shoe, as if someone had just left. After this experience, I never went through the Kiyotaki tunnel again. I avoid that road at all costs. The image of the woman in white with red eyes haunts me to this day.